Well, so we are done with our first service method and view. Let's focus on loading detailed weather data. Inside my weather service, I'm going to expose one more method, say getCurrent, which is going to call getCurrentWeather method. This getCurrentWeather method will take an ID as an argument. Let's implement the method by creating a differ object. Then let's form the URL, append ID to it, so you can see this time I'm sending the request to different URL. Now let's use http.get method passing the URL. Let's implement the success callback first with resolving a promise, then implement the error callback rejecting the promise. And finally, I'm going to return the promise. Cool. Let's call this method in a weather controller of our weather module. So you can see now I'm switching to weather module. So all of my code will be focused on weather module. This is the beauty of modular coding. Get that? But we need an ID of the city so that I can load the data for that city. And we can do that by passing that ID with the URL and grab it using route param service. Do you remember the lecture on route param service? So let's switch to search module, open the search.html, and I have already defined the weather route with an ID here and here on geocodes as well. And you can see here inside our layout module, inside config block, we are already passing the ID. So let's inject the route param service here inside weather controller and weather service as well. Let's first check for the value of ID, then call getCurrent method. Let's implement this function. Inside this function, I'm going to call getCurrent function of weather service, passing ID as an argument. Then a then function, success callback, I'm going to log the response, and an error callback logging an error. Run the application, search, click on any of the city, open the console and see that a response, detailed weather data here in the console. Now let's store it in a model of current on the scope object. Okay, so now we got the data. Let's inject it inside the HTML. So once again, I'm going to copy and paste some HTML, and this is simple HTML with our AngularJS model binding code. I request you to pause the video and have a look into this. Here I'm just using my model attributes and I have bound them to different HTML elements, and I have used some bootstrap CSS. Now our HTML in place, let's refresh, and wow, we got our detailed weather data, but with some problems again. So we need some style improvements here. So I'm going to assign some CSS class here and paste some CSS code here inside my custom.css. Then this broken weather image. So I'm going to open my search.html and copy this weather image URL and paste it here and append PNG to this URL. I know copying and pasting these URLs is a really bad idea. And don't worry, we will refactor our code in coming lectures. Also convert temperature to degrees and use number filter. Refresh. Okay, looks much better now. But these dates are not actual dates. So we need to convert these numbers to dates. So I'm going to write a function, say getTime on my scope, implement the function returning the actual date. Now you can see here on my scope object as well, I'm following the exposing API on top rule. I'm defining all my API here on the top and implementation below. That looks clean, right? Let's call this function in a template. First, here on the top, also add date filter with some formatting string. Then add sunrise and sunset elements with date filter. Refresh. Okay, so now it's looking much better. Now here we should have some way to go back to the search. So I'm going to add some buttons, one for back to search and one for forecast. Let's set the route for search button to search route and forecast to forecast route, passing ID with the URL. As we need to open the forecast page by clicking on the forecast button, and we need this ID to load the forecast data. Refresh. So we got the buttons. We need some padding, so I'm going to add some styles here inside my custom CSS and use this class here. Refresh. So now it looks good. Click on back to search and we are back to search. Cool. Let's work on our next module, the forecast module.